Ask a sports fan what the most bitter rivalry is. Some say that the Yankees and Red Sox have the biggest beef, or maybe the Packers and Bears. In the NHL, the Habs and Bruins have hated each other since the 70s. To me, the most bitter rivalry in sports belongs to the San Francisco Giants and the Los Angeles Dodgers. Maybe it's because of my situation as I live in between Los Angeles and San Francisco. And there's so many moments in this rivalry I can name off the top of my head, like the Nick Hundley and Yasiel Puig brawl, the shot heard around the world, and Dodgers fans beating a Giants fan into a vegetative state. Look that one up. Even just this year, in the most heated playoff race I've seen my Giants in, I can name so many magical moments that I've experienced thus far. Unfortunately, one morbid and hate-fueled moment that has been largely forgotten exemplifies this rivalry, and could have likely left a man dead on the baseball diamond, in the most grotesque and ugly moment in baseball history. So the Steelers and Browns are considered to be arch rivals, despite one team consistently owning the other. On a November evening in 2019, nearing a rare Browns victory, Browns lineman Myles Garrett infamously grabbed the helmet of Steelers quarterback Mason Rudolph and hit him over the head with it. Rudolph was also fresh off of a concussion a few weeks prior. This play is very well known in football circles due to its gruesome nature. Naturally, Garrett was suspended the rest of the year for this act, and rightfully so. I mean, who would club someone over the head with a blunt object, an action that could leave a victim dead? Unfortunately, this event did occur between two ball clubs over a half-century ago. Juan Marshall is the 7th most valuable Giant of all time in terms of WAR, according to BaseballReference.com. He was known for his odd windup, which involved his leg kicking above his waist and one toe pointing to the sky. A statue of Marshall in his unique pitching motion lives right outside Oracle Park's Willie Mays Gate, which is the main entrance to the ballpark. To put it lightly, he's a staple of Giants history. On a sunny August day in 1965, Marshall was to take the mound against the Dodgers' legendary Sandy Koufax. The second-place Giants would look to get an edge on the first-place Dodgers, which they ended up doing, winning the contest 3-4. But that's not what people remember from this game. Tempers flared early on as Marshall brushed a Dodger off with a fastball a little too up close and personal. After warnings were issued, meaning the next kerfluffle would result in ejections, we meet our other main character. Enter John Roseboro. He's a catcher for the Dodgers, and he doesn't take too kindly to his teammates being disrespected. He also doesn't want the valuable Koufax tossed from the game, a dude who doesn't like throwing at batters to begin with. So he gets creative with it. While returning the ball back to Koufax after a pitch, Roseboro decides to graze his ear with the ball during the throwback. Years later, Roseboro would admit that this was intentional, but it doesn't really matter when you look at the act in perspective of what followed it. Marshall was one who knew the act was intentional, and exchanged some unkind words with the catcher. Roseboro had been trained in martial arts and boxing, and he was already enraged with Marshall. He also had a catcher's mask to use as a weapon, which Marshall automatically assumed he would do. Marshall had a baseball bat. I think you know where this is going. I don't even want to describe the events that followed. This perhaps is the most famous image taken of them, where we see legendary Giants outfielder Willie Mays escort a bloody, shaken, and confused Roseboro to safety, while the others look to their direction. To me, this image is symbolic of when sports become more than a competition. Their rivalry, teams, and beliefs don't matter. They only wish to leave the field and move past all of it. In the aftermath of this incident, Marshall was suspended a whopping 10 games and was fined $1,750 by the league, which is around $15,000 in today's money. Considering Marshall could have very likely killed Roseboro on the field, he got off very lucky. Perhaps Marshall would have faced a harsher punishment had he clubbed a white player. Racism could have likely played a role in Marshall's lax punishment because of Roseboro's race, but we may never know. The Dodgers went on to edge out the Giants in the pennant race that year and eventually took the 1965 World Series. The Giants wouldn't make it back to the World Series until 1989. In that time, the Dodgers had collected 3 rings. The Giants didn't win it until 2010, and the Dodgers experienced their own title drought from 1989 to 2020, while the Giants won 3 titles in 5 years from 2010 to 2014. As of this recording, the Giants just clinched the division in Game 162 over the Dodgers. With the 2 best records in baseball, it is likely that these 2 teams will meet in the postseason. It's important to remember this moment, which exemplifies how far us fans will go until we criticize our own players. The Browns will claim that the Steelers started the Myles Garrett incident, and Pistons fans claim the Pacers to be at 100% fault for the Malice at the Palace brawl. No one, not even Giants fans, try to justify the Juan Marshall and John Roseboro incident in 1965. It is a moment that transcends each side's mutual hatred for each other. Marshall would be kept out of the Hall of Fame for a few years for the event, but he got in, and the MLB swept it under the rug and tried everything in its power to keep it locked away. It is a moment in sports that makes us question our own morality, and for that reason, I believe it deserves to be a lot more known than it is today. So, editor's note, update. Last night, the Giants played the Dodgers in Game 1 of the NLDS and beat them 4-0. It's the first time that the Dodgers have ever played the Giants in a 5-game series in their franchise's history. It's given me time to reflect on, I guess, how this incident affects the rivalry between the Giants and Dodgers. People always talk about how great this rivalry is, how it's always been, such a big thing and such a great spectacle in sports. It's always, been the headline of the MLB season when both teams are good. But this play is often left out of that. People don't talk about it because it's gruesome, but it's very important. It needs to be talked about when you're mentioning this rivalry. And I do believe that that's its purpose. As ugly and horrible as it is a piece of this rivalry, and it deserves to stay there. So, yeah, I mean, that's just it.